everyone. Welcome to Timeless Conversations. Happy to see all of you today. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
How are you all this morning?
Very awake for me.
All right. Today we have this topic called the enemy within, right? So what is this about? Well, we thought about this topic to focus on the discussion on why is it that some people, okay, find it very difficult to even love themselves. It's as if it is easier to criticize themselves. It's easier to practice this thinking that others are out to make life not so smooth for them, or that they are having a kind of like a victim complex, or that life is not so good for them and that life is not working out so much for them. So it's almost like they're dealing with an enemy that is alive, and that this loving themselves is very difficult to even feel into. Okay, so that's why we are looking at this topic today. So do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I have a question. So what would be the difference between someone that blames themselves versus blaming other people and finding fault on other people?
What is the difference? Okay, so Eddie's question is, what is the difference between someone who blames themselves and blaming other people? Taraka, do you have any response to that?
It's interesting, Eddie. That means not only they are victim to their outside circumstances, they're also a victim upon themselves. They are victim of themselves. that's how I see it. That's how I see it. It's our joy, our happiness is not dependent on the outside. We are doesn't need any external influence. And for me, the idea that there's even an enemy within, delusional. There's no such thing, because within us, what's stopping us from experiencing who we are, loving ourselves? It's not that we're seeking to love that. It's actually just there's barriers blocking us from experiencing that. So instead of seeking to love ourselves, why not say, let's just remove the barrier that's stopping us from experiencing that.
Taraka, before we go on, right, the audience requests that maybe you switch off your fan because it's blowing directly at your speaker, so that, yeah, we keep on hearing. Yes, we all do. Eddie, you do too, right? So
Is that better?
yeah, still and silent.
Oh.
Thank you, Taraka.
I'm sweating. That's okay. Yeah. So that's all I've got for now. 11
Okay, thank you.
at the moment. Yes.
I wanted to ask also then, you talked about self-love. I was wondering if we are able to stop everybody from hurting us and saying things that make us feel sad. Is that a form of loving ourselves? When we
Stopping.
tell people things like, you should talk to me this way or that way, and you should stop hurting me. Would that be a form of self-love?
So to understand what you're saying is like, will our control of other people or telling them to stop the behaviors that's causing hurt to us, is that a form of self-love? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we get a lot of coaching and retreats or seminars saying that you should love yourself more. You should love yourself first. And then things like you should empower yourself or embody the best version of you. And then that person says, yeah, I should do that. So the person might come and say to everyone around him or her things like, I won't let you do this anymore to me. I'm gonna love myself more. Yeah, you don't talk to me like this anymore. Things like that. So how do you refer this to self-love? Is this self-love? Because this what I'm bringing up is directly related to this enemy within topic. So I was wondering, when we make these kind of requests or demands, talking like about this to people, if it's a form of self-love, perhaps.
Actually, I would say that there are two types of two levels of responses. Actually, the very first, a lot of people who might find themselves in situations where they have tolerated beyond, it is maybe because they were more concerned about others' needs than their own. So yeah, possibly that moving away, choosing not to be in certain situations, will be a form of uh, being something that is healthy for themselves. But that is, to me, very surface, because actually the deeper thing that might be happening that contributed to the whole situation is some aspect of self that is calling out for or replicating or creating certain experiences where you are present to those kinds of interactions that is not so healthy for you. So there are certain kinds of thinking, belief systems, or whatever is in operation, maybe a kind of like a pain body that is replicating certain kinds of happenings, manifesting or replicating certain kinds of happenings. Because
What if I tell you that the exact behavior of such is the very enemy within us?
absolutely,
What would you say?
I would say I would definitely go with
Because
that.
you mentioned
Yeah.
this was healthy, but I don't see it as healthy. So what if I tell you that the very movement of requesting people such things and seeing that way is a very enemy within? What do you think, Taraka?
I see that as a form of control, because we're trying to control the universe that we live in, how people talk to us, how people behave or treat us. Again, this is looking outward to validate our existence. Right, we're pointing the finger outward and this same analogy, one finger pointing out, three finger pointing back. It is about pointing back at ourselves. See, quite often when people come and say, listen, I'm miserable because somebody did this to me, did that to me, and been the victim of whatever circumstances. And I always ask, I always ask them, why are we giving power away? Like our life, we give that power away to a very volatile external, because everything is changing and moving, and people are saying there's a lot of things happening. But why not we just go back inward? Because the very act of even seeing there's an enemy within is an act of self-violence. To me, that's, every time we look outside and pointing fingers, it is that. So, like I said, it's a form of control, because control is that we're not willing to accept whatever it is. So we complain, we bitch about it, we whine about it. But if we just be able to just stop for a moment and go, okay, this is what happened. Okay. Am I going to die from it? No. Maybe I'll get embarrassed. I get a bit upset. Okay, it's fine. I'm just willing to walk away, let it go. That's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. And instead of, you're thinking about it, you're miserable about it, and the next thing you know, it's just a tiny little thing. It became a monster because we just still, we couldn't let it go. We just couldn't just drop it. They said, chill, just drop it and move on.
I appreciate, Taraka, so much. What you said is very clear, and yeah, the very movement of pointing finger towards others and say, I feel terrible because of you, or I feel terrible because I cannot cope with myself, I'm a failure, is the same nature. There's nothing different. So whether we solve this issue outside or within, is the same thing. Like you said, it's a form of control. And I tell you one more thing is that what I've been experiencing is that when people, they self-flagellate like that, they're not confident or they blame themselves, they're more likely to have thorns and spite others around, So seeing ourselves as victims does not make us not oppressing others around us or hurting other people. So it doesn't mean that if we're a victim, that means everyone else is an oppressor. So I tell you, the very nature of seeing people as narcissists is because that nature, it's being reflected from us and projected outwards, So that's the importance of stillness, to be able to see that and see our patterns. So I think it's very, very much pertinent to this topic we're talking today here about the enemy within.
Absolutely.
Can I say something? This is also taking into accountability of our life, because it's very easy walking around and blame everything around us for what we think is going wrong. There's no accountability. It's not my fault because I'm a victim to this and that. So it's just living our life, just pointing this, pointing that. No, it's not my doing. No, I didn't do that. I didn't create that. But like what you say, Eddie, everything that's happening in our world is a reflection of who we are and where we're at. If we're a control freak, trust me, you create a lot of control freaks in our lives. Everybody else is trying to control you, and if you're feeling like a victim, you start to see it too, oh, that is reflected outward. So first thing first, take account, be responsible what you're creating, right? And not just brush it off as no, I can't control that. There's nothing I can do about it. Yes, absolutely. Choose a different behavior. Choose how you respond or react to whatever is presented. That will shift things, because if again too, one of the greatest mind. This is a quote from one of the greatest minds. Do not try to what they call solve the problem from the state of consciousness that you created. Right? In that term, I think you guys know who this quote come from. So we're always constantly creating all this stuff around us, and yet we think we're trying to solve all of this by, no, you should change. You should stop behaving like that to me. You should, you should be nicer to me. You should love me more. Da 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 da. So it's not going anywhere. It's like running around in a vicious circle. You create the same thing again. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Taraka. I've been struggling a lot with people nowadays when they enter this vicious cycle of demanding, expecting things, and I'm trying to just be there and present and listening, but then something may encourage them because I'm just sitting there and listening, and they go on and on and on. It gets overwhelming to me because at the same time I'm observing myself, and I'm getting out of myself and looking at me as a third person and thinking like, do I want to subject myself to this? Like, I'm in the moment, I'm going through this, so how to cope with this right now? So sometimes I see myself a bit invisible. I want to be there for me and for people, but like, it's very difficult to deal with people's expectation. And like you said, we are accountable for our creation. I think it's very important. So yeah. So I've been meditating more, and I've been trying to like remind people that I'll be there for them, but I must observe myself too. Make sure I'm available and fully there and present. But if I'm not in that moment, I cannot mix with that kind of energy. So I pause for a while. Why I do that? Because it's important to stop for a while and not get mixed with the stories, and just freeze time, freeze everything, and step back for a while. This has been helping me a lot. So, and then comes all the kind of names like, oh, you're avoiding or avoidant, or you're not facing it. And people say, I just want to solve this issue. And I'm like, when people come to me and say they just want to solve or just want to clarify, that's when I don't want to engage. Because what is there to clarify actually? And what is there to solve? So I wait until everything's cooling down, really. And people leave aside their stories for a while and then engage again. Because when we talk about enemy within, I think it's very pertinent to how we relate to people, That's where we see ourselves, in the mirroring, in the interactions.
So I have a question here. Okay, anonymous asking, what happens when the habit is there. So quickly slide into a kind of like, poor me, why is this situation hurting me, kind of situation. What happens if the habit is stronger than not engaging? And and yeah, then leads to a second question, which I will ask later. But shall we look at this?
I think it's interesting that the person asking the question used the word habit. We can call it habit or pattern. And these things, they usually happen unconsciously. It's just like a loop. It keeps happening and repeating. So I think unless we're able to get out of it, I'm not talking about leaving it, but let it be and step out and look at it from another angle or be aware of it. It can tell us a lot of how it gets triggered and why we don't get out of it, or do we want to get out of it, And many habits that we do, though we know it could be destructive or damaging, it's familiar, it's comfortable, I've seen a lot of that in relationships when people argue because they get a kick out of it. It's almost like having a piece of cake, and they're laughing inside sometimes, That's one cycle, that's one pattern. Hey Taraka, you're laughing. I wanna hear you.
Yeah, it's quite funny what you said, The question is how to break out of that. It can be very simple if we choose to. The solution is always very simple. We just break that. Break, like what you say, shift your perspective, drop it, walk away, or simply just, okay, again too, most of the time we're in this mode, right? Trust me, when you're in this mode, you're absolutely so stuck in the past. Because whatever that's happened, whatever has been said, whatever has been done to you, it's already gone. It's done. It may have been 5 minutes ago, it may have been 2 weeks ago, it may have been even 10 years ago, somebody said something to you that you're still upset about. Like, we're so stuck in this past moment. And sometimes it could just be a small little thing, but because we grind on it, and next thing you know, actually this little thing could have just been like, we take a deep breath and we just drop it and it's gone. But because we grind on it, it becomes such a monster. And not only a monster that is running your life. Yeah, it becomes the very decision. Everything you make is about, oh my God, no, I can't do this because this person will say that. It reflected in all our behavior. So when I say drop it, it's as simple as, are you willing to do that? The question is, are you willing to just, okay, it's over. Okay, I got hurt. I was sad. It's over. It's done. Right now, I'm good. I'm perfectly okay. Be willing to come back into this present. And you find just doing that, you go, actually right now I'm fine, but 3 weeks ago this happened. Usually our mind will jump back and blame whatever problem we have in this past. So it's again to this, just be aware whenever we are in that state of mind, we're no longer present. If you can find ways to just come back. I can always say, you can start watching all these thoughts, you can watch their emotion, but that just bring yourself back. Take a deep breath, bring yourself back into this moment. In this moment, everything is absolutely perfect. We're not a victim to anyone or anything around us. That's my quick take on that. I can go into elaborating many things, but come back. Don't fly off in the past or the future.
Thank you, Taraka. I've been facing situations also like when people are being like positive and saying like, oh, I missed you, or I just want you to love me, and things like that. And can't you say this for me or do this for me? It's like, no, I can't. No, cannot. What's wrong with love? And I'm like, I don't know what love you're talking about, but it's not very healthy. And I don't want to nurture that, we don't want to nurture that. Because if we nurture that, we are entering that too. We also create loops by doing so. So if we are aware of that, and we step out a bit, then you realize that this thing about love or missing or feelings and things like that, we can project and attribute value systems and value and make it into romanticism and things like that. So what's wrong with love? There's nothing wrong with love. But the thing is, what we conveniently say it's love could be a pattern. It could be a loop of something, could be a self-satisfying thing, just like rewarding with treats or drugs or whatever, So my experience has been like, when people enter loops, I will just stay quiet, and then tons of message will come, and then calling, and then I say, hey, I'm not available, I'm sorry, I need some time. Then the callings keep coming, then I had to block, then a few hours later I unblock, and still on that, still coming and coming. And sometimes I have to block for like 3 days, and then unblock again and go like, hey, how is it now? Are we like blank now? Can we just, now are we visible to each other? Yeah, and this is a thing that even interacting with people, sometimes I feel a bit lonely when we become invisible completely and just characters reacting to patterns and habits and loops and things like that. So maybe the way I'm talking today is a little bit different from what I've been talking the last weeks, because I want to refer this to what is actually happening in a practical way in our lives. I think it's important to see that, and I don't want to be too abstract. Yeah, so this is my sharing for now.
So this recognizing that there is something that is almost like a transactional expectation that is going on, that is someone is wheedling for as a response to satisfy something. It's almost like a looping pattern, wanting to get something from outside. How does one stop it? I want to say that because it's like when one is inside there, sometimes it cannot be seen, like cannot see themselves being it. The whole consciousness is locked into the internal enemy image, like this person is hurting me in this way. Why can't this person see that the hurt is done this way? So there's an internal dialogue, and when Eddie said that, then therefore people might not be visible because there's an interaction with maybe not this person per se, but our mental image of this person and our mental image of how this person is attacking. Taraka, do you have anything to say to that?
Yes. You ask, how do we stop that? Again, too, my question is, how willing are you to just drop it? Dropping something we think it's a big deal, you know, like when like what Eddie say, just walk away, take a break, kind of, you know, like kind of stop that interaction if something is going on. So it's like you're holding a hot potato in your hand. What do? You continue to hold it. It's burning you. It's causing pain. And then you continue because it's like, okay, I'm holding on to my position of being right. Because cases is that I'm right, you're wrong. So I'm holding this potato and I'm suffering and in pain. Just freaking drop it. You wouldn't just go, it's hot. That's all. And quite often I see people just say, no, but I'm right. She's wrong. He's wrong. He's doing this to me. Yeah, just drop it. It's over. It's done. Because there's an energetic when we're holding on to something. Even if it's nothing to start with, it like the whole energy of it become so huge, and we can't stop it, like you say, it becomes so inside this whole thing. You can't see clearly. You can't, you know, everything come out of your mouth or whatever, how you behave is just when it's a triggered reaction. It doesn't come from like a loving response or whatever. I'm not saying that if somebody call you name, you just be very loving and say, oh, thank you so much, I love you. No, I'm not saying that. It's a very different approach when you're not coming from that vicious cycle. Again, too, like I said, the behavior, we're willing to drop it. You know, this, I know this is in Chinese. My favorite Chinese saying is 放下屠刀立地成佛. If you're willing to just drop this weapon, drop this self-violence, drop all of that moment you become a Buddha. Because we're all of these things pointing out, we're not fighting with somebody out there. There's no they out there. It is a fight within ourselves. This is like fighting with our own shadow. We're kicking ourselves, you know, our shadow. We're doing all of that. And what you say, Eddie, about earlier, you know, about you know, about love. Actually, that's not love. I mean, like you say, we very easily call this love. If you love me, da. No, it's manipulation. Yeah, it's manipulation. Come on, let's talk about this white elephant in the room. We call it love, but it's not. A lot of time we try to manipulate somebody's behavior because we are out of the name of love. Then we become that control freak that we detest. You know, like we're trying to control everything around us so that we can feel love and accepted. Right?
Thank you so much, Taraka, because I think these patterns become attached to values, like when people come, hey, be honest. Tell me, do you love me? You know, things like that. So honesty is a kind of value. And when you just mention about being right or wrong, it's another value system. So when we are in that realm of right, wrong, and morals, and we use that conveniently to try to get what we want or to fulfill something, then this is the principle of some triggers. This is how some patterns are nurtured, you know. And when people demand, like, hey, don't you have honor? I usually will reply, no, I don't have honor. I don't even know what that is. And when people say things like, are you scared? Are you a coward? And things like that, I'll say, yeah, sure. Whatever you want to attribute, I'm here present to it. So I'm talking about more complicated challenges when it comes to us. And usually when I talk to people, I'm very aware of feelings, my feelings, their feelings and needs and stuff. So all these things start coming out, all the emotions and things like that. And then the strategies usually are attributed with values or morals or demands and requests and expectations. So like you said, sometimes we just pause and get ourselves out of it. And there's nothing to do, actually. There's no way to stop it. We have to just be observant and aware of it. Should we even stop it? That's the point for me here. Should we even try to stop it? Is it something bad? I don't want to go there because I don't want to attribute anything to it. And if you ask me, then what do you do? I rather observe it as an event. It's just like it's a stormy day out there. Maybe stormy here too, you know. Just there's nothing you can do about it. Just observe it.
Okay, there's someone here, Trisha, who asks, like, I already am aware. I see myself having some patterns. Okay, but it's just, I just don't know how is it like to feel this sense of confidence and self-love that is going to be okay. I get dragged in.
Very well put. I think it's very fortunate that this person is able to see this pattern. But I think the last two things you said is, number one is self-love, right? And what was the second thing?
Dragged in. It's
No,
like
no, no.
confidence, self-love
okay,
and
right.
confidence. It's like she says she doesn't know how it feels like the self-love thing.
When it comes to awareness, self-love and confidence, they are another values. It's like it's almost like pricing something, you know. Is confidence something necessary for awareness? Is self-love necessary for self-awareness? Do we want to enter that? Because that's the same coin, just another side of it. So if we want to leave the patterns so that we get more self-love or confidence, we're just entering the same room through another door. That's how I see it. How about you, Taraka?
Actually, what comes to me about self-love in this case, I just get this sense, for me, okay, love is a big word, and sometimes it's so overrated, you know. I would say, how does it feel? For me, I feel at peace. That's self-love. When I'm not triggered and I'm not reactive or getting all like this volatile because of what's happening, when I'm at peace, I call that self-love. That's my experience, to put it in a easier sense of understanding. So when I'm at peace, I don't know, when I'm at peace, I just have this trust too that everything is going to be perfect, fine, regardless of what I think is happening in front of me. But I trust that everything is in perfection. So in that trust too, that's where my confidence comes from, because I know everything is going to be fine. This soon shall pass, whatever we are going through, whatever that we're suffering from, whatever we're thinking about, or whatever, this too shall pass. That's the saying, yes. Because everything is presented, is perfectly presented. You know, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not even earlier or later. It's absolutely perfect at the right timing, what is in front of you. So when we're at peace, another thing happening, when we're at peace, we don't resist what's there. We're not fighting. We're not fighting with what's going on. That doesn't make sense. That's what I got.
Taraka, it makes a lot of sense. And the thing is, if we talk in a practical way and people are seeing a pattern and they're in an argument, and the parent, one of the parents will be insulting, for example, or self-inflicting pain and whatever. And just like you mentioned just a few minutes ago when you talk about just cut it, just stop it there. For me, that's very, very real, you know. It doesn't gradually happen. For me, it's like, okay, I'm within this pattern. Let's say I'm having an argument, let's say a conflict, and how to find peace. We don't find peace there. We just like, instead of going into that loop of accusing ourselves or being regretful and say, oh man, I did this again. I'm such a terrible person. Look at this pattern. It doesn't stop. No. What I do is just surrender to it. I'm angry. So what? Just surrender to it. You know, be with it. We find peace that way. At least it works for me. When I embrace that and don't do anything about it, don't avoid it, or don't punish it, just like be with it. That's such a peace, you know. I'm not talking about peace like you're transcending over the situation and you're like
Triumphant.
listening to the angels voice and you know everything's like a cloud. No, that's not peace, dear. We're attributing a value to what peace should be like. But how about you surrender to that heat, that fire of the moment? There's nothing to fight against anymore.
You know, quite often, Eddie, when we're in this quite internal fight, it's quite often we are holding a certain position. There's a position, and we're not really willing to drop that. So what? So what if I'm? So what? You know, just drop it. Okay, you call me name, you call me selfish. Okay, fine. I'm selfish for this moment. I'm willing to just drop that and let it move through you. And let breathe through it and go, you're right, I'm wrong. We always never, you know, even that's the right and wrong thing, you know, that when we take something, when we're holding a position, there's always something personal. Whatever somebody is saying something to you is attacking you because it's not nice to hear. So we're taking it personal. So come on, a lot of wars started from this, holding a position, taking things personal. And then a lot of whoa.
And being right, you know. My dad, I asked my dad once, what is the origin of war? Why do people kill each other? And my dad said, this happens when the two sides are right. If there's one side wrong and the other is right, there's no war. But when both sides are right, then we have a big issue there. And you know, it's funny because you were just laughing now, and I see myself sometimes in a situation where people like crying and like arguing with me, and I start laughing like a pirate, like a mad person, because I'm seeing this pattern happen, and I'm just like out of it and letting it be. Sometimes I'll just go, hey, come here, let me give you a hug, and not get involved with that, you know. And like you said, you're right, I'm wrong. Who cares, you know? So I think when we give so-called ego whatever they want, give them, you can be right, I don't mind being wrong. Many things drop. The stories drop, you know. And I think that's a way of surrendering to leave, to pause a bit on the values, you know, and just let it be. But I tell you, it requires a bit of meditation and awareness during that thing. You have to get used to it. It's not like sitting down 1 hour and meditation. I'm talking about really meditating during the whole heat of the moment.
I would like to just, train our attention towards this image of the enemy inside us. We possibly project this to other people, but if we examine, is from my observation also, that if we examine this image, a lot of it is actually our deepest fears projected on an image, maybe that projected on, again, people we come into interaction with. It could be our deepest fears of failing, our deepest fears of not living up to our hopes and dreams, and then projected onto someone else. And so what I'm seeing is that there is a lot of like energy put into not only finding the attacker from outside, there's also a lot of energy directed towards criticizing the self, and it's easier to think badly about the self. It's easier to think that I'm not worthy, that I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not looking good enough, I don't feel good about myself. And that's why I hate this person so much. This person has stolen my friend. This person is, it's because it's too seductive or whatever, the projection of these things. So there's a lot of like self-hatred that is trained constantly towards the self. So the discomfort with even the concept of being okay with this being and being and loving, or even saying I love you to this being, that feels like a cringe-worthy kind of thing, versus criticizing the self, like, yeah lah, I'm so stupid, yeah, I'm so bad, yeah, it's definitely not for me, or something like that, So the root of it, that, what do you all think? Talk to me about this thing about people not being comfortable to be even compassionate towards the self, but there's a constant feeding and of this attribution of values within directed at the self.
I think that's also all right. Sometimes I'm playing games and I go like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Why did I make this decision? And then sometimes I go like, man, I'm so stupid. But the thing is, when you're able to get out of it, and then you see the character self-punish itself, it's okay, So, oh my God, I'm punishing myself again. I shouldn't be doing this. I think that's an issue, because you cannot find peace with that. But even when you're not so-called loving yourself and punishing, what I mean is, yesterday a friend of mine asked, can you tell me what you see as beautiful in me? And I said, oh, you have nice hair, or hydrated face, like moist, and all that, all that all that thing. And I said, why you want me to say things like, oh, because I need the affirmation, because I need to, love myself. I want to treasure myself. All right. Yeah. Nice curves, nice dress. Just give it to them, I don't correct people because there's nothing to correct, number one. But I think when we are aware and some, I wouldn't call it act of kindness. Anything that just let things be and still and bring us back to observation is what Taraka mentioned about peace. There's nothing to conflict with. You know, if we are alone and punishing ourselves and we get out of it and see like a third person cameras and see ourselves, it's just fine. So we're not trying to stop self-punishment here. Even we do something stupid, we can feel peace with that. We can find stillness with that. I don't know if I answer your question. Is it clear? I mean, I'm just sharing my own experience. It's not really a theory.
We got a response from one of our listeners who texted me saying that the response is okay, makes sense, but very steely hard. Like maybe these two persons that's talking are not water signs, you know. Maybe it sounds harsh. But this, I think, okay, let's just take it in a kind of like a good humor, that maybe what our listener is saying is that how about this self-love and self-compassion component, you know, don't we have to be like gentle with ourselves?
Okay, if we talk about water signs, I'm very water sign because I'm Pisces. So I've been dealing with these things since I was a kid. And something I learned in Thailand is that about compassion, there's no such thing as self-compassion. And according to Buddhist teaching, they say that compassion, if it is compassion, it will cover all, everyone, not self-compassion or compassion to others. Compassion is just compassion. It's the same as love. You don't love someone or you don't love yourself. Love is just love. Let's put it that way. So if we are oppressing someone by being compassionate to ourselves, that's not true compassion. And thank you for the steely. I like it. I think it's funny because we're not necessarily cold people, but we do have emotions and feelings. We're just not attributing stories to it. We cannot avoid feeling something. We cannot avoid sensing something. We are made of senses. But the moment we attribute a story to it, from feeling and sensations, it becomes an emotion. And then what are you gonna do with that? Attributing story to a feeling. Then what happens with a story? Stories are made from the mind, and feelings are from the heart. It's entangled. It's very complicated, and you don't want to go there. So what I do usually is that what I think, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. You don't want to be present to your thoughts. Maybe you just let it go through you. Just like when Ishayas are insulted and then you just go through you. And you're just listening there. But you're just aware of yourself and your feelings, right? Maybe Taraka can teach us about going through us.
It's so funny the way you put Ishaya get insulted. We don't take it personal. We just giggle and laugh, you know, and drop it. You know, it's a reflection. Whether we like it or not, we don't let it fly through us. Come on, we get pissed off, we get angry, and we start to point fingers. It's a normal behavior. Actually, I do want to say something in answering to Julia's question from the listener. Sometimes, yes, I totally agree. It's not an easy thing to face on how to love ourselves. We have to be so cold, we have to drop things, we have to surrender. I can't do that, I can't do that. Yes, I do understand, because sometimes we have to meet people where they're at in terms of their experience. I find, again, so this is true, the Ishaya's teaching, the Ascension, Ishaya Ascension teaching, that quite often we can't love ourselves because there's too much condition and too much impression and core belief and all that stopping us from experiencing that. So we look at a bit more easier way to approach to that love, right? And the next thing we look at in a form of gratitude. If we can't love, can you at least say thank you, or at least be grateful for what you are experiencing? Sometimes even gratitude is a bit tough, because no, I don't feel grateful for what's happening to me. Fine. So then we look at something a bit more easier to deal with. Can you at least even just appreciate it? Which is another form of praise. Because come on, whenever we're in this self-hatred, self-violence, victim consciousness, quite often there's criticism, because there's opposite of appreciation. There's always this experience of lack. I'm lack of love, nobody loves me, and also the fear, like what Julia is saying earlier too. It's all these three things that is not, so we can't feel love, we can't be grateful for what we're experiencing. At least have this, just stop and just appreciate what is there. At least even just pray. Sometimes when I have students come to me and say, oh, Taraka, I'm thinking about all this thing, I'm so miserable today, what should I do, and I say, actually go out there, find 3 people, a stranger, and just praise them. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't have to be fake. It just say, oh my God, I like your new hairstyle, or this is, like whatever it is. Go to an uncle that's frying. Oh my God, you cook really good food, or whatever it is. Just go out and find 3 people to appreciate or praise, and come back and tell me how you feel. And quite often when we're in this mode, because praise is easy, everyone can do it. We can do that. Only a matter of whether you're willing to do that. That's all. We don't have to really push ourselves to love. No, we don't have to love that person. We just appreciate. That's it. It's the same way we appreciate an environment. The same way we're appreciating a song we're listening. We're appreciating what's happening in front of us. We start from there. We start from there.
You say about appreciation, and this viewer you just mentioned, Julia, 2 comments before about seeing the pattern happen. When I see it coming, I feel I really appreciate it, When I see this so-called destructive or bad pattern or whatever coming out, and I'm able to see it on time, in real time, I have this sense of compassion so much, I don't attribute this is bad or good. It's just like this pattern coming out, and I'm able to observe it, and I see it, and there's so much compassion on it,
Absolutely.
And so much appreciation for it. It may sound crazy, but
yeah, it sounds like, even for some people, it sounds like self-torture, but But I'd like to say something to our listener on this point as well, that it sounds like we are inviting, like, all of us to be in the heat of the moment when patterns come up, and even allowing certain things to be played out, to be seen. And sometimes it can, I think very often it might be in very close relating, for it to happen, close working relationships, family relationships, intimate relationships, because that is where a lot of our vulnerabilities are seen. So the thing is, for example, this listener says, knowing is one thing, but overcoming strong, sad emotions is really, really hard to do. And I want to say that yes, while we stay in the fire, just like what Eddie was saying just now, while we stay in the fire and appreciate this event, an event that comes up, recognizing that our nervous system might be overstimulated at that time, it begs for some kind of even more gentleness. I think for ourselves, it's not gentleness in. Can I?
Sure. Sorry.
Not gentleness in a sense that, like, we demand gentleness from others per se, but even in the way that we perceive that moment, perceive to even be able to deflect and to be able to stave off self-criticism, the eagerness to condemn, the eagerness to even make a statement about ourselves, is sometimes making statements of criticism of ourselves might seem like it's an awareness act, but I'm going to challenge this to say that sometimes these statements that we make of ourselves, like, yeah, I'm always bad in this, I'm always a loudmouth, I'm always this and that, I want to propose that this is actually a blindness act. Keeps us blind behind a kind of a label, and it is something that almost like pauses and is almost like satisfying some fear there, and say that okay, you're safe now because you know that you're not good in this, so you don't have to like stay in the fire and look at it. So I'm proposing more and more gentleness, in a sense that to be able to see and allow and know that this is the field where awareness happens, and to be able to see certain patterns, and once seeing, maybe start to dissolve it, start to be more aware of it. The next time it comes up, don't feed it so much more. Yeah. Eddie, you wanted to say something?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. We don't overcome sadness because there's nothing wrong with sadness. When we say things like overcoming sadness, it made it seem like sadness is an issue. So why am I bringing this up? Is because when we start overcoming sadness, then that's where I see an issue about it. Because when we start handling our feelings and having solution for feelings, that's where we create patterns too. So let's say we overcome sadness, then we need to be sad again so that we can overcome it again. So why is that an issue? Is it dangerous even? Every time we're sad and we try to overcome it, this becomes like a repetitive pattern, and it becomes familiar. Then we need to be sad again to overcome it. Overcoming is something quite valiant and brave, right?
Exactly.
It's a sign of strength.
It's a reward.
So what's gonna happen with that? We're gonna find the wrong guy that will break our hearts, and we get sad. Then we will love ourselves, and then overcome it. And then we go to Bali and go eat, pray, and love kind of thing. And then we find another guy, this time the right guy. And then we get heartbroken, or let's say we get happy, right? And then we break his heart, let's say. And then we self-punish ourselves for doing that. And then we create another loop of it. So what I'm trying to say here is that feelings are not a disease. It's nothing to overcome or nothing to solve, nothing to handle. If you're sad, stay with it and be sad. Yeah. Do we need to create more patterns here? Really? No. But sad is negative. Let's stay positive for a while, right?
Yeah.
Then we create loops for positivity. So what positivity is another value system that we created, another illusion of it.
You mentioned a good point. It's like what we validate, right? Like amongst the spiritual, sometimes we greet each other. I say we. I don't do that, so I shan't say we. So, do you come across people who greet you with, "Hey, I love your energy today," or something like that? It's almost like a validation or a praise or a label of sorts. So, like this Elfie Cohn, he wrote this book called "Punished by Rewards," and it's almost like a creating a reward system that can seem innocuously good. Okay, it might seem like it is quite innocent. It's just praising people, right? Or praising or something like that. But what I'm saying is that beware of a kind of invisible reward structure that is also being built there, and it's also another way of setting standards or another way of living by. So I mean, we can watch ourselves doing that or receiving that or being attached to certain things like validations when they come and say that, oh, you look so joyful, it looks like you are doing so much better or something like that. And some people attach being joyful to spiritual arrival.
Doing so much better is funny,
Huh?
and when you said, "Oh, you're doing so much better," I found it funny, that sentence.
Yeah, because it's almost like something wrong with your past, right?
Oh, sometimes I hear people say, I will feel sad, but then I don't stay there long, and then I will overcome it. But sometimes you see that person is sad at least like 10 million times a week and keep overcoming it. So, so I'm like, don't overcome it. There's nothing to overcome. And you mentioned about punished by reward. I have a pet, and every time I'm busy and I need to put the pet back to the cage so that the pet doesn't destroy the whole house, I'll put back in the cage and give a blueberry. So I created this crazy pattern on the pet. Now every time I put in the cage, the pet is like walking towards the door of the cage and looking at me. Where is my blueberry? I complied. I entered the cage. Now you have to give me a blueberry. So we could be doing that to ourselves all the time. Every time we overcome sadness or we manage to calm down when we're angry, this is all a pattern as well. And we're trying to reward that.
It's very
so
subtle.
How many times do we want to get angry in a day so that we keep rewarding ourselves? You know what I mean?
With the overcoming, yeah. So since we're going subtle here, let's even go more subtle. Like, so there are people, okay, who get confused by saying that when people make requests, they see it as a demand and they go into like a high trigger mode immediately. So I'm mentioning that because this someone is saying that my wife is always jealous, okay, always jealous. So what I find myself doing is that what I find myself doing is that I will always like be on defense. So when I sniff anything coming in that direction, I go into a defense. And even though she's asking something nicely, I actually find myself not giving her much of what she wants. So what do we, in situations like that, the enemy is also active, right?
Taraka. I can talk if you need some
Taraka
time.
has been quiet for a long time. Let's hear from her first.
No, actually, I do want to address, before I answer your question, Julia, about what we talked about earlier about feeling sad and having emotion. I have to agree with what Eddie say. There's nothing to overcome. Even that concept of overcome can become a battle.
Right.
Because what is sadness anyway? Let's take a in-depth look. It's just emotion. It's energy moving through emotion. Energy in motion. We feel it. We let it move through us. There's nothing to overcome, right? And by doing that, you always tease about this Ishaya thing, you know, like let things move. It's absolutely just that. Not holding a position to it, not being right about it or wrong about it. It just glide. It's like a Teflon experience. Sometimes I recall it. It's just like a Teflon. You glide here, you glide there, you know, and energy glide past us, and comment glide past us, and nasty name calling glide past us. It's just that. It's just flowing through us, and by just doing that too. And Julia, you mentioned earlier about praise and all that. There's something very magical about praise and appreciation. Not in the context of I praise you, I get a reward. Then there's conditional. There's no purity in that. Just simple praise or appreciation have this upward spirit. Like there's this current that moves outward very naturally around us. It shifts that. If you walk into a room when you notice, oh, there's some energy, somebody's having a fight or somebody is having some bad vibes happening in the room, as soon as you walk into the room, you can feel that. And if you're just willing to go, hey, what a great day, it can be as simple as that. You're not, you know, like, oh my God, I love the color of the wall or whatever it is. You just have, and you can start to see the shift in it. It's just very that magical. We don't even have to do anything about it. It shifts itself. It shifts itself, the energy. That's why energy is not meant to stay and become a monster. It shifts. So as simple as that, I answered.
Yeah.
That's what I've been wanting to say.
Yeah, I do get that, definitely. And I definitely think appreciation is so important. But of course, just a quick note to say that there are different ways of doing praise. For example, like for children, we always tell the parents not to just praise natural attributes like how beautiful, how smooth your skin is, and you know how beautiful your long hair is, and all that. It even though it uplifts, but it actually creates an imprint of a negative imprint, somewhat in the reverse. But more so, appreciate gestures. Appreciate sincerity, appreciate actions, maybe. That sort of thing.
Yeah, like I said earlier too, it's appreciation in its purest form.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful.
Not for
but actually, that's not even. It's a manipulation of some sort. It's not praise anymore. It's not appreciation. It's not pure.
To know this distinction actually liberates us too when it's coming towards us. You know.
Yes.
So not to create a kind of addiction towards it.
No, and you know, addressing your. You had a question earlier about this guy. We haven't forget you. That this guy have this you know, like a wife that's jealous or something. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, this again too is a conditioning. It's got nothing to do with your wife. Your wife may be jealous. Your wife may not be jealous. But because we have a conditioning of a past event or past behavior that's happened, we always use that as a reference. My wife is doing this because she's jealous. Then we start to set labels into people's behavior, right? And the wife may be jealous or not. She could be it's a loving act from her, but because we don't allow that experience to move through us, we start to label, oh no, she's doing this because she's jealous. That means we're already either running ahead of ourselves in a future moment or reflecting back into a past moment. So it became a condition that way, because then every time my wife behave like this, it's always there's a label to it, why she's doing it. Why not experience it in its purest form? Okay, so what if your wife jealous? Trust me, if you haven't again, to taking accountability, if you haven't done anything to create the insecurity in that right, then there's no room for jealousy in a relationship. I'm not putting blame right or wrong. I'm not saying. Sometimes we may have done something that creates the illusion that, oh my God, I may not love you as much as you think or whatever. So it causes a insecurity in a relationship. Then we go that the spouse will start to act up because she don't feel secure. That's where jealousy come from, because when we don't feel secure about ourselves, right, with the value system we put in relationship to my husband or my parents or whatever. So this is something to look at. My wife jealous. Okay, why is she even feeling jealous in the first place? What have I done? It's a self-reflection. Maybe I should be willing to tell her more. Right? Sometimes we say, oh, you know that I love you. I don't have to tell you that. Trust me, I love to hear that you tell me that you love me. Simple thing like that. Right? Sometimes we're not willing to move a step forward to do the things that. So that's again too. I just want to bring all this back into pointing finger outward. That is the reason why this is happening. Right?
It's the same movement, right? So whether or not, and then if the husband seeks for justification and affirmation that the wife is needy, therefore his enemy image of her being like jealous all the time is justified, then he's also falling into the right or wrong trap. And then he's also not like doing the reflection and watching and also being compassionate to the needs that may be very present. So when you mentioned this thing about like to take it in its purest form, I think the precedent of that, what comes before that, is that we also have to be in our purest seeing, right? So how can we be able to take something in its purest form when our eyes are not new, when we are not in our purest seeing as well? Yeah, Taraka? So we are actually at 12:25, and it's a pretty long time. So I would think that I would think that we can carry another conversation, another time. What do you think, both of you? Are there anything that you'd like to address first?
I have one last thing to say about the so-called jealous wife. One thing is we stay with our feelings and not trying to handle it or react to it, or just let it be and we're aware of it. And another thing is when we are facing other people's needs and feeling. So what I would tell this viewer is that there could be requests from your wife to call every 10 minutes or in front of all co-workers and colleagues, say things like, can you tell me that you love me out loud so that people around can see that my husband truly loves me, and she wants proof, or she wants to feel secure, for example. So the thing is, not handling your own feeling, but not also handling other people's feeling, and be true to your nature. Because if you do that, both will pay for it. We gotta be authentic to ourselves, you know. We have to be alive in what and who we are. We don't want to nurture a pattern where you have to call every 20 minutes and prove where you are, or unlock your phone permanently so that she has access to your data, for example. You don't want to create that kind of pattern where you yourself cannot be authentic and genuine. So I usually don't buy into my own strategic things related to my feelings, but I also won't buy into other people's stories. So it's important that you're aware that you're not entering yours, but also not entering other people's stories as well.
Absolutely. So to do what Taraka is saying is like, before we point the finger outward and say another person has a story, we should also look inside to see whether we have a story. Like someone very wise once said that, to perceive requests from other people as demands is really a very tragic misunderstanding of needs. Yeah. So, Taraka, you look like you want to say something.
Actually, I was going to add just a little bit to what Eddie is saying. If we are in a relationship that we have to report to our partner every 20 minutes, trust me, this is not a relationship.
Not viable. Mm.
Take a look at it, because it's not working, because it's insane. No one has to report to somebody, or at least, it's not a relationship. There's no give and take in that. There's a lot of taking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of taking. I don't know who is doing the taking. There's a lot of taking and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's in trouble. Seek help.
Yeah.
Be willing to seek help. And deal with that. So that's why I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine. I have been in relationship like that, and it's to a point, it's so stifling. I just walk away from it. I said, I don't need this kind of relationship. I'd rather be alone, because this is not love. This is control and manipulation.
Yeah,
in its pure. Yeah. So
but of course there are situations that are not like in those states. We are talking about like daily interactions, let's say. Then I would end this conversation with, then if with how maybe our attention can be focused innocently on how we can make lives more wonderful for ourselves and other people too. Right. And okay, our dear listeners, thank you so much for sticking with us for all this time, and we'll see you again next time.
See you. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks.